The air hung thick with incense. The scent of myrrh and frankincense, once pleasing, now choked King Solomon. He sat on his cedarwood throne, eyes heavy, his gaze distant. The grandeur of the palace around him felt cold, the vast riches a burden. Gone was the youthful king who had prayed for wisdom. In his place sat a man drowning in opulence, his heart a stranger to the God he once held dear. Solomon, the king who had known it all, was now a prisoner of his own making, his kingdom teetering on the brink of chaos. Solomon's reign, a beacon of peace and prosperity, had become a cautionary tale. The man who had built a temple for the one true God now presided over a kingdom fractured by idolatry. His countless wives, hailing from distant lands, had brought their own gods and customs. They chipped away at Solomon's faith, their influence a slow poison that spread through his court and seeped into his soul. The once righteous king had succumbed, his heart straying from the path laid out by his father, King David. The whispers began subtly. Doubts crept into Solomon's mind like vines, slowly choking his former convictions. He had sought knowledge from every corner of the earth, amassing wisdom like others collected jewels. But this insatiable thirst for knowledge had morphed into something darker, a hunger for power that whispered promises of ultimate control. Solomon, blinded by his own brilliance, failed to see the trap being laid for his soul. He embraced the forbidden, erecting altars to foreign gods, his actions a betrayal of the covenant he had sworn to uphold. Solomon's early reign had been one of unparalleled promise. He was young, barely a man, when he inherited the throne of his father, the legendary King David. Despite his youth, he possessed a wisdom that astounded all who encountered him. The story of Solomon's legendary judgment, where he resolved a dispute between two mothers claiming the same infant, spread far and wide. This act established him as a ruler touched by the divine, his name synonymous with wisdom and justice. The young king's heart burned with a desire to honor God. He poured his energy and wisdom into constructing a magnificent temple in Jerusalem, a fitting home for the Ark of the Covenant. The temple, a testament to Solomon's devotion and architectural genius, became the heart of religious life in Israel. Its construction solidified Solomon's place as a divinely chosen leader, his reign blessed with peace and unprecedented prosperity. Word of Solomon's wisdom spread beyond the borders of Israel. Kings and queens from distant lands journeyed to Jerusalem, eager to witness his sagacity firsthand. They brought gifts of gold, silver, and precious stones, their caravans laden with exotic spices and animals. Under Solomon's rule, Israel became an epicenter of trade and cultural exchange, its influence stretching far and wide. The kingdom flourished, its people enjoying a golden age of peace and abundance. But Solomon's wisdom, his greatest strength, also contained the seeds of his downfall. He sought knowledge relentlessly, delving into the mysteries of the world with an unquenchable thirst. Yet in his quest for understanding, he began to explore forbidden paths. The ancient texts whispered of forgotten gods, of powers that lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. The allure of the unknown, the promise of ultimate knowledge, proved irresistible. Solomon, convinced of his own righteousness, reasoned that he could control these forces. He argued that understanding evil was necessary to defeat it. He began to dabble in the occult, collecting ancient scrolls and consulting with practitioners of forbidden arts. Slowly, imperceptibly, a darkness began to seep into his heart. The king, who had once been a beacon of faith, was now teetering on the edge of a dangerous precipice. As Solomon delved deeper into the occult, he distanced himself from the God of his fathers. The whispers of doubt grew louder, fueled by his growing arrogance. He began to see himself as more than a king, more than a man. He believed himself to be on par with the gods, capable of wielding their power. The once humble heart of the king had hardened, replaced by a prideful hubris that blinded him to the consequences of his actions. Solomon's fascination with the occult wasn't his only transgression. His reign, marked by peace and prosperity, had also brought about an insatiable appetite for luxury. He surrounded himself with opulence, amassing vast wealth and constructing lavish palaces. Gold, once a symbol of his kingdom's prosperity, now represented his growing decadence. He indulged in every conceivable pleasure, his court a whirlwind of feasts, music, and dancing. The king, who had once shunned excess, now reveled in it. His harem, filled with hundreds of wives and concubines, became a symbol of his decline. These women, many of whom came from nations that worshipped other gods, were not merely objects of desire, but pawns in a complex web of political alliances. Solomon, in his desire to maintain peace and expand his influence, allowed his wives to practice their native religions. He turned a blind eye as altars and idols to foreign deities sprung up around his palaces, a blatant violation of his covenant with God. He justified his inaction by claiming to be above such petty concerns, arguing that all paths led to the same divine truth. His tolerance, however, was merely a mask for his indifference.